And this is the map of it all together. It may look a little bit confusing, but it actually fits together very nicely. And this is what all nations are doing now. It's how they're developing events. First thing, they obviously have to have decision criteria because it fits under the government. Okay. And the decision criteria about those three things, you know, it has to do with tourism and community and infrastructure. Example is this one, just from Canberra. I just pulled off the web, and there's their decision criteria. If an event meets these, they'll look on it favourably, and you can see economic, marketing and social, exactly what I was saying before. Always keep your eye out for those three. If the event meets those, then it will be more likely supported. So what happens is that a city or a country develops what's called a portfolio of events. It's never one event, it's a whole series of events. It's often called a program. But they've also got to develop the ability of the country to develop events as well and run them, and that has to do with competency, and then they've got to make sure they've got the venues, etc., and that's called capacity. With that, they must have a legal system that supports the whole thing, and that's the standards that I'll take you through. Then we have to develop the portfolio, the series of big events, whether they're international or local, and often they use a number of tools to do that. One of them is called the Anself Matrix, and another one is the Boston Consulting Group Matrix that you could have a look at there. And that's how some of the tools used to develop events. Okay, so they have to measure the portfolio if it's working, and these are the tools we went through, which had to do with economic impact, if you remember, direct and indirect and multipliers, those sort of things. But more importantly is what's called the cost-benefit analysis. You know, you have to look at the costs of event as well, including the opportunity costs. This can be quite complex, and mathematically that's what it looks like. Not that you necessarily need to know that, but that's what they do. So we have to look at growth models for events too. How do events grow? You want to make them international, and I showed you this. This is how a local event eventually becomes an international event. And also how big events can spawn other events. You've got to remember all international events started as a small event somewhere. Okay, so then we have to look at how the government's going to do it. Well, are they going to create events like that, or are they going to buy them in? A lot of international events are bought in, but originally, don't forget, they were created by somebody. So somebody actually created the event in the first place. And the government or the city has to give approval and give money for events, and they put it through what's called an approval process. Now, these are the key terms that you really need to know in this course, so make sure that you understand these, and when you do your assignments you can give definitions of all these. They don't have to be my definition, you might find better ones. All of this is what's called asset management. Okay, an event is an asset, just like a bridge or a hospital, and the portfolio comes from asset management theory, and that's how countries and cities develop events, make them international, bring in international events. And these are the advantages of using an asset management approach, and this is definitely the way the industry is going. Okay, so it applies to all kinds of countries, and most of the ones I've worked in, and it will apply to yours eventually. So now's the time to learn about this. This is a master's level topic, and we're looking at the development of events around the world. Now, the reason that they like assets is that it creates value. And just going over again, some of the tools that are used, because it's a profession, event management, you have a return on investment. That's a major important tool. This is just a bit of a summary. And then how do you develop that return on investment? How do you develop those events? You use some of these tools here. Okay, so that's a quick summary of today's lecture. It's a big one.